Imposter syndrome. How to find confidence in the OR as an SRNA. What is up, guys? My name is Sarah Wild. I'm a board certified registered nurse anesthetist, and I am here talking today about imposter syndrome and how you, as an SRNA or a new CRNA or wherever you're at in your career, can gain the confidence to believe in yourself and not give in to that imposter syndrome. I'm going to read now the definition of imposter syndrome. It states, imposter syndrome is the internal belief that you are not as competent, smart, or capable as others think you are, despite evidence of your success. In the OR, it can sound like, I do not belong here, or they're going to find out I have no idea what I'm doing. You can even say that it's not a reflection of your actual ability, it's a distortion of how you see yourself in a high pressured space. Okay, I want to start this episode by saying everyone experiences this at some point in their career. Some people, it takes longer to get over. Some people, it doesn't take as long. It tends to hit the hardest when we are surrounded by competitive people or when we are trying to grow really fast. Thus, anesthesia school. This is a period of time where you have some of the brightest people in the nursing industry are trying to grow into becoming the best anesthesia providers in 3 years. That is a short period of time. It is condensed. It is hard. You are combining a lot of information with a lot of new learned skills. That is when imposter syndrome hits the hardest. And to be honest, even seasoned CRNAs go through this when we switch specialties. I'll never forget in my training, I trained with a CRNA of 20 some years, and she was like, gosh, I have not done open hearts since anesthesia school. I just don't know what I'm doing. I feel like, oh, so stressed out. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. The key is to recognize it. There's a few reasons why SRNAs in particular tend to feel this, and I just want to highlight a couple of them real quick. First of all, you are being constantly evaluated by your peers, by faculty, by preceptors, by surgeons, by nurses, by surgical techs. You're shifting between ORs, different teams, different CRNAs with completely different expectations. What one person says is just so wrong to another. Sometimes there is a lack of feedback, and sometimes there's just feedback a mile long of everything you're doing wrong, how you're not getting it, and it just is so overwhelming. You go from being an ICU nurse where you are managing people's lives, you are excelling in your career, to what feels like just the dumbest person alive. You are constantly being challenged. You're constantly being told that you aren't right. You need to go home and study that. You don't know that. You should know that if you want to be here, you should have studied that. Why are you here and you don't know that? The list goes on and on and on. Not even considering the comparison game that's going on, whether it's social media, whether it's where they worked, it's whether who they know. Comparison is so detrimental in this scenario. So I want to challenge you guys, and I challenge myself too. Instead of viewing these moments where maybe we're failing or we don't know something, let's reframe our thinking. Let's take failure and turn it into learning. Let's use failure to fuel curiosity, not shame. You're either winning or you're learning, and learning becomes winning. Failure is just an opportunity to learn. So let's take your experience. You don't know hardly anything. You look at this scenario, it's so overwhelming. You see these CRNAs doing everything, and you're just like, what am I doing here? Instead of saying that feeling, I am not good enough, I do not belong, I am not capable, say, wow, I've got a lot to learn, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn it into success. So I'll never forget, it was my first rotation. I did an integrated program. So they put me in clinicals a month into my, maybe it was 2 months into my first didactic semester. I was doing, I believe, a DNC. The CRNA, if I remember right, was doing a general with an LMA. And, I'm just there to learn. I've got my notepad, I'm on time. I've done all the things that I know how to control. I was on time. I did as much pre-oping the patient, trying to learn. There's so much that I don't know. My CRNA is very gracious and understands that I just don't know much. But I'm sitting there and I'm sitting watching her. And now it is just like muscle memory to me where, you like pop the LMA in, you hook it up, you turn down the oxygen, you turn on the gas, you adjust the respiratory rate to meet the proper tidal volume. You want to make sure the CO2 level's correct. And then you're checking all your ventilator settings. And I just remember like sitting there with my notepad and I'm like, and I literally wrote down respiratory rate up, volume up. I'm taking notes, but I don't know why I'm taking notes. I have no idea what I'm taking notes about. I'm like, yellow gas turned on, oxygen turned down. I'm literally just like writing notes for what I have no clue what's going on. And in that moment, and I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, okay. And I'm just like watching and I'm like acting like I'm learning. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I have no idea what she's doing. But I just sat there and I watched. And the thought I had was, she is doing this with such confidence and ease. That will be me someday. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that will be me. I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to learn the tiniest amount and I'm going to get better and I'm going to get better. And I'm not going to look at this and say, I'm not good enough or I can't do that right now. I'm going to learn to get there and I'm going to take my time because even though I have no idea what the heck she's doing, she's a CRNA and she's a baller and that's going to be me someday. So taking that just real negative thought and saying, hey, how do I learn to do this? Let's take it one step at a time. So if you're someone that you're just like, man, I'm not good at taking those hard scenarios and turning them into positive scenarios, I want you to try something for me. I want you to start a confidence boost journal. I know that sounds so stupid, but literally get a journal from day one and document small victories. I'm talking small victories. I want to know the first time you got your arterial line. Guys, the first time I did my arterial line, I hadn't even practiced in lab, and I'm pretty sure I could have done just as good if my eyes were closed. It was literally like after it went in, I was like, oh, that went in. I have no idea how it went in. It was like pure dumb luck. And I think the doc was like really impressed. But then I think I missed like my next multiple and I was laughing. I'm like, yeah, no one else is impressed with me except for that one person who saw me get so freaking lucky. But that was a small victory for me. And I remember it in my mind, but I wish I would have documented more of the small victories because as you go along in your program, you're going to realize you will see a small victory every single day. And it's good sometimes when you have bad days to look back on those small victories. I'll never forget my first day in the OR. It was hysterical. Um, I was not an OR nurse, so I very rarely ever went in the OR during surgery. It's intimidating. If you've never been, now it's like, whatever. I could walk through a whole surgery, go through all the it's not a big deal. But when you're never in the OR, you have no idea what you're doing. So it was my first clinicals. I think, let's see, I was doing, maybe it was like a kidney transplant. It was a big case. And I was so new, obviously doing a lot of observing. They put me in that room. So I go in. Guys, listen. I walk into this OR. It's a huge OR, multiple people prepping things. I walk in, my shoes are untied. I forget to put a mask on. I walk in almost up to the table where the anesthesia provider is about to place a central line. I trip into the anesthesia provider with no mask on. The whole OR is just like looking at me like, who is this loser? And he like just grabbed me by my shoulders and he's like, take a deep breath, go outside, tie your shoes, put your mask on, and then try again. He was actually really gracious to me because I was like, I think it was just so bad. I was like Bambi with like, no, he go back out, come back in, watched it. It was so cool. I loved it. I think it was just so neat. But I just was like, wow, talk about just feeling so dumb. But then I was like, you know what? This is an awesome learning experience. And I get to look back on that and say, it is okay wherever you're at. We have all been there. We have all had moments. We have been there. So, this next tip I'm going to give you is just all about how to speak up when you're unsure. Now, I'm going to be honest, guys. There are going to be days where you are with the preceptor and that person is just having a bad day and they are just going to be a dick to you. It's just a matter of fact. I cannot give you a formula to make everyone nice to you. And it's probably a them problem, not a you problem, but it's still a you problem and you have to deal with it. So I would tell everyone get really thick skin, be really respectful, be very humble, study your butt off to know everything, but you can't be a know it all. Use respectful curiosity and answer questions in a way that make you sound like you've been studying it and you know it, but you're also open and receptive to criticism. Maybe an answer could be, I'm still learning about this topic, but I believe it would be, and then fill in the blank. So you are becoming humble. You are humbly answering the question rather than say, oh, I know that. It's this, 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 this. And then what if they don't agree with you? And then, or they just don't like your attitude. But if you say, I've been learning about this and I believe it is X, Y, or Z, that comes across as humble, but you've done your due diligence. And then also realize it's okay to say you don't know. I would so much rather my students say, hey, I'm actually not sure. I'm going to make sure I go home and really look this up and really take the time to educate myself on this. And if you would like, I'm happy to come tell you. Just honestly, having someone admit that they don't know something is huge. But you need to show an attitude of, yeah, I'm not quite for sure, but I really want to learn that. I'm going to make sure that's a priority of what I study and I'm going to get better in that area. So just a humble eagerness to learn that takes away that imposter syndrome a little bit because you're admitting, I'm still learning this. I don't know. But then it also boosts your confidence because you're showing that willingness to learn. And then that CRNA or doc is going to be like, hey, good for you. And then they usually will give you some more insight or insider information to whatever subject you're talking about. I think the key takeaway to this video is it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. We've all had those moments, but you got to find ways to help you build your confidence step by step. I love the confidence journal. Maybe you need to get a mentor. That's a lot of time. A lot of time when you're in anesthesia school that you just probably don't have a lot of. I think if you show up every single day with tools in place, a plan in place, you just rely on that and you trust the process. Now, you can't put your head in the sand and not study. You can't not go home and learn about those things that you said you were going to. You can't hide from your problems. You have to take them straight on and study and learn and work hard and not be afraid to try again. You're going to go through a cold streak. You're going to have a few times where you have a hard time with intubations. If you're having a hard time with a Miller blade or a Mac blade or something, you have to speak up and find someone and say, I'm really struggling. Can you please help me? I will never forget, I had this one anesthesiologist who he said, you are only using Miller blades for a month, and then you're only using Mac blades for a month because I'm going to make you really good at both. And that's how I feel now. In my practice, I truly could care less what blade you give me. I'll intubate anybody. Doesn't matter. I know how to do both because I was forced. And I'm telling you guys, man, I was so intimidated by that Miller blade because I learned on the Mac blade. And I was so intimidated. I'm like, gosh dang, I don't know what I'm doing. But you know what? I said, well, got to do it. So I'm going to give it a shot. But I was able to get practical tips on how to be really good at it. So the key is to ask, maybe find someone that's really good at something you're struggling with and say, hey, what are some real practical tips I can do to get better at this skill? Maybe it's central lines, arterial lines, IVs, don't be embarrassed that you're not good at IVs. In the ICU, we didn't do a lot of IVs. I loved that I was able to be on the IV team when I was an ICU nurse. So they would call me with really hard sticks. So I got really good at that. But you'll lose that skill if you don't do it often. So if you've ever doubted yourself in the OR, I want you to know you are not alone. It does not mean you are not cut out for this. What it means is you are in the learning phase, you are in the growing phase, and the growing pains are hard. They're painful right now. But I am here to tell you it will get better. So do me a favor, drop a brain emoji below if imposter syndrome has ever crept in on you. If you have ever had those moments where you felt like, I shouldn't be here, tag a friend that you know is going through this right now and just needs encouragement to get through what they are going through. Let's normalize imposter syndrome. Let's normalize admitting when we are having a hard time in life, when we are having a hard time in anesthesia school, and we just need a little support from those around us. Thanks for being here, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the Wildly Authentic podcast. Once was the Wild Fam. Like and comment on this video for your support. And if you do not follow us over on Instagram, here is my handle, swild.crna. We do all things from anesthesia, lifestyle, travel, all the fun stuff. Have a good day.